to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports, the sports gamer in your ear every single Thursday. My name is GoodGameBro, and the gentleman over there that's wearing a hat because he doesn't like his haircut and finally has a beard back is my co-host Mills.
Dude,
Mills,
my
how are you?
haircut looks amazing. Are you kidding me? I had
It looks way
I
better.
had more compliments. They said it took years off me, but like not in like the bad way, like shaving your beard does. By the way,
you were like 12 for a while when you had your beard shaved.
by the way, I will acquiesce here, just so everyone knows. I was defeated in week 2 of our fantasy football, but the real defeat is still looking at that god-awful picture of now 2 incorrect hair settings. Like this is you. It's like you went on to like some video game and created me, but said, you know what? Instead of short hair, I'm gonna make him long hair. I'm gonna take his beard off and make him look like a complete asshole. Is what it looks like. So
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I literally have not won a single game since then. I've literally been defeated in every game since I beat you. So
that makes me feel worse. That makes me feel worse because like I felt like I had a really good draft. Well, considering the fact we both drafted, like we were playing two running backs and a flex,
and then we found out it was one.
We found out it was one. So we're both running with like weird wide receiver combinations, but like we always have like this week Dalvin Cook was back, so I put Jonathan Taylor on the bench for Antonio Gibson, and Taylor goes off for like 25 points. If this is a 2 running back flex, you and I are probably in first place with each other. But the thing that really hurts me, the thing that hurts me to my core is that you beat me with Aaron Rodgers and then the next week went to Daniel Jones. I was like, damn it, man, why?
Daniel Jones is actually, look, I know off the top of heads, people are like, oh, Daniel Jones is not a great quarterback. Look, Daniel Jones is having a pretty good year so far. Let's not slander the young man's name. Also, Daniel Jones is a top 10 fantasy quarterback.
Oh, 100%. Well, in one of my leagues that I'm in right now, it's like Jalen Hurts. Like, I don't know that you would want Jalen Hurts like manning your team for like a Super Bowl run, but anyone that gets those rushing yards or has those opportunities, like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is throwing for 300 yards, but his big thing is I think he's leading the league in rushing touchdowns at some point. So, same idea, but I think we're both going to be okay. I think we're both going to make a comeback, and then I'm going to beat you in the playoffs where I need to. So.
No shot.
You bring Aaron Rodgers out in the playoffs, I'm gonna go nuclear in about every single atmosphere I can. So, but we haven't been together for a couple of weeks here. You've been traveling. I've been, just sitting here waiting for you every Wednesday. You didn't tell me we weren't gonna record, so just sitting near my computer. I mean, it's what I do anyway. So, so talk to me. What have you been playing like the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, man. Warzone has a new update that is actually live today. If you're listening to it the day of the podcast dropping, super excited about Warzone. I've been trying to grind. My goal is 500 Warzone wins by the end of the year. I'm at almost at 450. Like I'm pretty close. I'll hit that before the end of the week. But a lot of Warzone.
End of the week.
or I'll hit 450 by the end of the week. But I've played a lot of Madden Next Gen recently.
Excited?
I tried the Battlefield beta out as well, and some rough edges, but the core gameplay, if they polish that up, I think is going to be great.
I agree. It's a very. I was playing on an Xbox. I'm not playing on PC yet. It is a very, very beautiful experience when you're running through. There are times where I legit stopped mid game and was like, "Whoa." Like this is all happening. I think the bringing back of Levolution, having I think there was a tornado that happened during one of them that I was like, whoa, what the hell is that thing? Battlefield's really good at those what the hell moments in terms of what's going on. So I think, and I agree with you. I think the ping system was one of the things I had the most problem with. Helicopters are incredibly overpowered right now. It's like it's almost impossible to hit them even with anti-air right now, but. I think they made the right choice delaying until November, and I also think they're on a very good path because of that delay. So, fun experience. I think I tend to be more of a Battlefield guy because I'm more of an play the objective, team-based shooter. Whereas from watching you over on Facebook, like I feel like you're more. I feel like you're more a star of the show, want to take the last shot, whereas I am more of the facilitating guard. I'm just gonna say.
I mean, I think in Call of Duty, why I like Call of Duty is it's more fast paced and you're sort of in and out of action a lot sooner. Where Battlefield, it's like you'll be in the action, and when you're in the action, you're like, oh my god, this is incredible. But then you might go 4 minutes before you like see an enemy because if you're playing Conquest and you have to go to like another base or whatever. But Call of Duty I like because I'm still team oriented despite what you think. And so I love like moving as a unit. And then when you wipe a team in Call of Duty, it's just like, oh my god, still a
Yeah,
top
so
10 feeling.
we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I feel like a lot of Battlefield in my future is coming up. I was started playing. We'll talk about here in a second, but I started playing FIFA for 22 for the first time. Um, I'll be honest, like I'm having more fun with FIFA now than I have in a very long time, and I'm just playing career mode. I played Volta for like 3 hours and didn't
Ultra's
realize 3 hours
fun.
went by. Yeah, so a lot of really good updates there. Let's get into that real quick. FIFA 22 released while we were in our little hiatus. And they've already got a major patch coming out. Major patch fixing a lot of the FUT issues, the Ultimate Team issues, but a lot of like a massive gameplay patch coming out for FIFA, which is kind of crazy. As you hear this, it's already been released for PC. It's supposed to be out for consoles. It may even be out for consoles as you turn this podcast on. Um, the what I want to talk about is kind of like the notes that they put out. We'll talk about what's in the notes. Does anybody else do patch notes kind of like FIFA does, where they're exact? Like the first gameplay note reduced the effectiveness of goalkeepers. Goalkeepers are completely overpowered right now. When diving for and saving my ass, by the way. Effectiveness of goalkeepers when diving for top corner shots taken from inside the penalty box. And like the sub note here is this change specifically applies to shots taken within 37 feet, 11.27 meters of the goalkeeper. Like they're legitimately giving not only competitive players, but everybody, hey, look, this is the exact thing we did. And I think it is a change that they started a couple of years ago. They are the most open with every single change they have. They want the information in their players' hands. And I think other games, even on the EA Sports banner, could really benefit from doing this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think even more games in general, like not just under the EA banner, right? I think how many times do you watch? Everyone now is so analytical when they're playing a game.
Right.
Even casual players, when something gets changed, if they see the patch notes, they're like, "Oh, I want to go and test that out," right? And so, like, you look at a shooter. They talk about changing, percentages of a weapon for, recoil control or damage or range or like whatever. There are people that have channels dedicated, like True Game Data, that
Mhm.
go through and just like show side by side comparisons of like what that essentially is. I'm sure there are FIFA YouTubers that do the same thing of showing like here's before the patch, here's after the patch is sort of how it works. Like this stuff is great because for people that want to get that extra edge to dominate their opponent or to win more games or whatever that might essentially be, this information helps them out a ton for those people that want to go research that.
The other thing that I like about this too, and again, this is kind of like inside baseball, but we'll talk about it here. I love that FIFA has a public Trello board with all of their issues and kind of like it shows where they're tracking it, what they've done with it, if where it is on like the quote unquote totem pole. But some of the big issues that they fixed are kind of cool. Like they've a lot of foul updates because there's barely any fouls in the game right now. I know fouls aren't really a sexy part of FIFA or of sport soccer games, but a lot of goalkeeper updates, a lot of like dribbling updates, especially. I thought they were going to be a little scared to start updating gameplay early with a new engine like Hypermotion, but dude, I will say this: the Hypermotion engine does make a difference. Like FIFA looks and plays much smoother. And I'm kind of excited to see that kind of feed into other games in the upcoming, in like Madden 23. I really hope Madden takes it on.
Sure. Yeah, to me, I think the cool thing about hypermotion, if I remember correctly, is that they were doing everything with like the 11 on 11 experience and motion capturing that way,
Hmm.
rather than going the route of doing, the one on one or the 3 person or 4 person sort of can animations. And to me, it's so cool because you think about like when you're playing a sport, and then if you were trying to imitate what you were doing in that sport on like a random thing. And when people are doing motion capture, they're doing it like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, trying to do it in some sort of natural way.
Right.
And the most natural way you can do it is to literally be in the middle of playing a competitive game in real life and trying to do it. Some things like dunks might translate, shots might translate, but like when you're talking about someone defending or interacting with you or jostling for position or whatever, like those are the things that you really need people to be within the game experience to replicate fully and the most authentically.
And I think one of the things that I really set FIFA apart from, even when I compare it to Madden this year. Madden this year took out a lot of two-player animations. Like, you're not seeing a lot of those canned animations anymore. They're still there to an extent. FIFA, when you watch it in motion, you barely see any of that anymore. The ball is completely free of everything. The each player is completely free. Even when you're joshing, like I saw a guy like grab a guy in the shoulder and kind of slip back to the back side of him and fall off, and they have to come back for him. It feels like individual pieces working together in poetry instead of like, hey, look, this is all your scripted poem. Here's where we go. You know what I mean? So props to them. FIFA's in a good place. When I'm reading from some of their comp players, some of their pros, some of the big time FIFA guys that know the game well, way better than I do. It seems like it's in a good place. So let's hope that keeps going, because gameplay updates can be kind of tricky at times. Speaking of another EA Sports game that, by the time you read this, we'll have a full version trial out. NHL 22 releases on EA Play, or has released on EA Play as you hear this, for the 10-hour full game trial on both consoles. They've gone over a couple of cool things over the last week, and while Madden, I feel like Madden gave us all their information in like a month or two before release. NHL put everything in like the first 2 weeks right by release, and one of the cool things they've added, I don't know if you've heard this or not, is roster sharing. They finally updated roster sharing, so guys like Tugi and a bunch of those franchise guys that create rosters all year, it's not going to be out until a patch in December, which again is another EA thing where it looks like they're going to make their franchise modes more live service. But being the only game without roster sharing at this point, I think that's the huge upgrade, especially for the franchise community.
Yeah, I mean, think about how much it impacts Madden, right? There are YouTubers that leverage roster sharing all the time.
Ciao,
Off the top of
Bengal.
my head,
Yeah.
Bengal, you use
Yeah.
RBT, guys like that are always using rosters in really fun, creative ways. And like that helps content creators, but also helps players. Like I go in and I see like 1992, AFC, NFC rosters or whatever, like use these teams, or like players in their prime, or college standout. There's all types of different rosters you can essentially have, and like it just gives you more replayability with your game and different ways to be creative with it. And then letting other people experience that is great. I don't remember if NHL touched on this, but did they say if they were doing draft classes at all, or were they not doing draft classes?
So it hasn't been stated, but draft classes were brought up a couple of times. The understanding that I have is draft classes are included in roster sharing. So the roster would be community files, custom draft classes, all of that. But again, as we saw with the Madden scouting update that should be out at some point in another week or two, things could change very quickly. So I think
Sure.
that's why they were a little vague about it. They're already releasing this as a patch in December, so 2 months after release. So my guess is we see draft classes included with that, because why do half the feature? But I don't think it was said very specifically from the NHL crew.
Makes sense. Draft classes just make, to me, it would just be weird to not have them in.
Right, agreed.
And if they can do that, I think that would just be so cool for that franchise.
The other part of NHL that I want to bring up is something you and I experienced a couple of years ago when Madden added X Factors. Madden was in a place where the gameplay was extremely stale. And NHL, as I've told you before, I know I play a little more NHL than you do. But we both have some experience with it. NHL's in the same place. Their gameplay is extremely stale right now. And so one of the things they're adding is X Factors, zone abilities, superstar abilities to the game. I think this might be the corner they need to turn. And while I understand Madden struggled with it the first year, I think this is the move that pretty much all games have to take. Madden with superstar abilities, NBA's had badges forever. NBA 2K has. I think that gives you that extra bit of customization and personalization to get players to kind of play differently based on similar ratings.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's like you look at NBA 2K, for example, like what's the difference between Steph Curry and Trae Young, right?
Mhm.
You can look at similar three ball ratings, but like what really makes those guys stand out, right? Like you need to be able to showcase that in a game. Like, yes, they're going to play similar, but you can also look at like Trae Young versus Klay Thompson.
Right.
Those guys have similar 3-point ratings, but they play entirely separately differently. Like Klay Thompson's going to be more like coming off a screen, shooting, maybe a one dribble shot. Trae Young is going to be dribble me Elmo, and he's going to pull up in your face from 35 feet. So like there needs to be that nuance. I think when you go into hockey, the same thing. I want to be able to see a guy and be like, oh my God, he got the puck at the crease. I'm scared beyond my life. Or I'm going up
Right.
against this goalie in a one-on-one. I know this goalie is going to absolutely shut me down half the time. I got to be creative. I want that panic. And again, we talk about storytelling all the time. You want those big moments. And then when you get rookies that come in, or you get the rosters as players start upgrading and new players start coming into your career, as they start getting an X factor, now you're like, oh my God, this rookie I've had from when he was terrible to now having an X factor. Like, I feel so proud. You get attached to the players. Like, it's just a major move that I wish we would have seen earlier for NHL. But
Agreed.
I'm glad it's here.
And one of the cool things that they announced during the franchise changes is their draft classes. As you scout through the draft classes, there is a tab for X Factor abilities. If you scout a
Love it.
player enough, like you can find X Factor abilities deep in the draft as part of the scouting process.
I love that.
NHL is regularly underrated for how good their franchise mode is because again, when you talk about the top four sports in the U.S., hockey tends to lag behind at times. I think NHL has the same problem. It's not the quality of the game; it's just the sport. When you talk about it, is much more of a niche sport than anything else. Their franchise mode is fantastic and still involves one feature that I talked about on Twitter that I want to see in all franchise modes, and that's the ability to put fog of war over all ratings unless you actually send a scout. Because NHL has like FIFA does pro scouts and amateur scouts, so you can actually send guys out. Even if you're in the NHL, like you have to scout opponents to know exactly what you're going up against. And in this case, it's the same way. Zone abilities, X factors, which I believe is going to be one X factor. They handle it a little differently. Let me try to explain this real quick. So it's an X Factor ability has a zone ability and a superstar ability tied to the same X Factor. So as you unlock them and equip them, if you equip it into the X Factor spot, that is like a zone ability in Madden, which takes something to trigger it. But if you put it in the superstar ability, it's like a toned down version, but it's a passive skill that's open all the time.
Got it.
And players have the ability to get up to 5 of those, including in Be a Pro. I saw a really cool Be a Pro expansion on that. So it's cool because with Fog of War, you have to actually scout and find out if these players have those things. Otherwise, you're in a game kind of blind looking at people. And one thing you don't want to do in games like NHL or FIFA is be blind against an opponent and let somebody sneak in on the third line and be 99 speed flying by everybody. So the other cool thing that this adds for me personally is I watched No Sleeves go over the Ultimate Team strategies in this. And this adds so much strategy to competitive head-to-head play in Ultimate Team. He talked about how early on the season, he's going to focus on X Factor abilities on his defense and not his offense because they're doing the same thing that Madden has in Ultimate Team where you have a certain amount of ability points that you can do. And then you can only have so many X Factors or abilities around at the same time. I think it's 30 points. So being able to focus on that defense first, or however you want to cultivate your team, I think it's kind of an awesome addition to strategy for adding in not only for head to head or whatever you do in Ultimate Team.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board. I don't play as much into the like Ultimate Team side of things, but
Right.
in general, like I think it's a great move.
Yep, for sure. So NHL 22 coming out. We should already be playing that. I know I'll be streaming it. If you're listening to this podcast, I'll be streaming it tonight. I'm sure you'll get your hands on it at some point. Get dirty into it. By the way, the Be a Pro changes look fantastic. They look like they're adding into a multi-year experience, whereas last year it was really focused on the rookie year.
Yep.
Um, I'm going to consider this a massive piece of news. I know it's just an announcement, but I consider this massive because with this addition, I'm going to say this very confidently. Esports Boxing Club adds Deontay Wilder to their roster. Their roster is the single best fighting game roster we've ever seen, boxing or UFC. And that's saying a lot because I like the UFC games from EA. Matter of fact, I like the THQ games back in the day too. But when you talk about like every single star you can think of just starting to pop up, I would think guys like Fury and Wilder are both going to be in the game. You can recreate that entire.
Wait, Fury's in the game?
I'm pretty sure Tyson Fury was announced for the game. Yeah, hold on, let me just double check.
I thought Fury and Anthony Joshua weren't in because they had to deal with UFC.
Is it? Maybe that's. Hold on, let me see here. Double click. No, Tyson Fury in esports. Yeah, Tyson Fury. Unless this is he's on the roster.
Oh, you're right.
He's on the official roster. We're talking about Vladimir Klitschko, Vitaly Klitschko, Vinny. Like, the roster is insane. The roster is absolutely insane. They have currently 100 licensed boxers, 7 championship titles.
That blows my mind that they got him in there.
Bro, let me
Had
say
him for UFC.
Here, do this. Do me a favor. I'm gonna read off a few of these. Okay, you ready for this? Muhammad Ali, Floyd Patterson, Vladimir Klitschko, Roy Jones Jr., Sugar Ray Robinson, Jack Dempsey, Vitaly Klitschko, Sugar Ray Leonard, Riddick Bowe, Larry Holmes, Joe Frazier, Rocky Marciano, Joe Lewis. Like, do I need? They have a page that's bigger than the screen I'm on right now. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Mickey Ward. Like, it's just nonstop, man. Sam Jones is on this. Sonny Edwards,
Male and female, by the way.
Female, by the way. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, they like some of these are sort of gone, but they have like Katie Taylor's in there, Heather Hardy. Yeah, I mean, they have male and female pretty much the top. Like, I don't think Anthony Joshua's in, and I'm assuming that's because of the EA UFC thing. I'm surprised Fury's in, but he 100% is definitely in.
Yes.
But this is an insane roster. Like, I'm still blown away by how good it is.
Yeah. So I mean, just unbelievable. I just see names as I go, and it's just like I'm just thinking of like setting up just. Kid Galahad's in it. Like, I'm gonna do Gotti Ward. Hold on. I saw Ward in here. Just let me make sure Arturo Gotti's in here too. I just want to do their best of 3 series. You know what I mean? That's one of the things I loved about when I played Fight Night. So keep your eyes on this. There is a lot of hype going into this. I've seen some gameplay videos. I know they're really heavy on their visuals and their footwork. So if they can nail gameplay, this could be an absolute home run of an indie game. I still can't believe they got as many licenses as they did.
I agree. And I just saw also one of the female boxers I was trying to search for, Clarissa Shields. So if you haven't seen her, she's literally insane. And I think she's also training to be an MMA fighter, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But Clarissa Shields is one of the most dominant boxers in women's boxing today. So having her in there as well, like, they have the past, they have the future, like, it's extensive.
Yeah. For those of you that harp on me all the time about try to get me to tell you why boxing games won't work. It's because of the number of licenses required, and because, the juice isn't always worth the squeeze for some of these larger companies. This one is a boxing only company. They're not focused on anything else. This this is something to watch. Keep your eyes on this. There's no release date yet. I know they're getting closer and closer. Obviously it is Todd Grisham's involved with this. Jesus. Anyway, so 100% keep an eye out on this game. Esports Boxing Club on Twitter. It's ESBC Game on Twitter. So let's move into the world of real sports, because are you ready for this? Because this story has grown massive. We talked about before the NFL season started, Urban Meyer being hired in Jacksonville from Ohio State. Okay. And there was rumors about players not buying in, Urban Meyer treating them like college kids. Well, Mike Silver came out a couple days ago, and here I'm going to read this verbatim. So we're clear, Urban Meyer was caught in a club with I don't believe it was underage. I think it just was like a college age girl near him, I believe, dancing with her, and was pretty much called out on it over the weekend after a loss. So we're clear that's what insinuated. That's what started all this. All right. Mike Silver tweets, the Urban Meyer situation in Jacksonville has reached a crisis point, especially in the locker room. One player told me he has zero credibility in that stadium. He had very little to begin with, which we already talked about. Players were particularly put off by the fact that Meyer canceled Monday's team meeting as he dealt with the uproar over the videos of him and a young woman getting cozy in an Ohio bar. He even canceled the team meeting. He was too scared, the same player said. Instead, Urban Meyer only apologized to position groups individually. He portrayed the woman in the videos as a random person who was just there dancing. Suffice to say, his audience, who already knew the story, was highly skeptical. Said one player, we looked at him like, WTF? I won't get into that. Right when he left, everyone started dying laughing, and he knew it. Okay. The same player says it's bad. I don't know how it's going to function. He's done, right?
Absolutely.
It's over.
I think they are in the midst of trying to find someone to replace him.
Yeah.
I think what's happening is Shad Khan is going through. He's polling players on his own. Everything we've seen from Khan is that he's very hands-on. I feel like he's going to be definitely doing his due diligence to talk to people, see how players truly feel.
Right.
He put out a public statement saying he was not happy, not pleased at all. He's talked to Urban. I think if they lose the next 2 games, he's absolutely gone. The only redemption for him is, I think they're probably saying, can Urban turn things around to some degree? And I think they're trying to be somewhat, they have a franchise quarterback for the first time since Mark Brunell.
Right.
I'm thinking here. My assumption is they're trying to do their best to make sure they're making Trevor happy, because they know in 5 years they need to make sure or 4 years, they'll try to re-sign him before that 5th year. They're going to try to re-sign Trevor Lawrence. They want to keep him happy, and they're trying to build a culture in Jacksonville. If you want to build a culture, hiring Urban Meyer was the wrong thing to do in the first place, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But there's literally no shot he makes it past the end of the year. I can't imagine.
So Urban Meyer goes. Charlie Strong, the assistant head coach who was with Urban Meyer in Florida, goes. Darrell Bevell probably might make it through this because he was hired the same time Urban Meyer was and has NFL experience. Joe Cullen, the defensive coordinator, same thing, 14 years of experience before coming into Jacksonville. Both of those guys hired in February. It's crazy to think just everything that Urban Meyer has done to this point. Come in, the stories of, trying to rally his team like a college team, bringing in Tim Tebow as what can only be at this point considered a personal favor to bring a player who can't even be in the league as a quarterback, to bring him in as a tight end, and then calling him tight end 1 in training camp.
Let's also not forget about Chris Doyle, the coach that had the racist remarks at his past at Rutgers or Iowa, can't remember. Yeah. And they try to vouch for him, but no, it's good. I talked to him about it.
Yeah. It's not even unfortunate. This is completely brought upon himself. There's no chance he makes it through the season, as you said. And the worst part about this is even James Robinson. You're going to take something, let's take it football related. James Robinson was top 5 in yards from scrimmage last year. Okay.
Yep.
Carlos Hyde is their feature back right now because Travis Etienne is hurt. They drafted a running back in round 1 when you had a guy that was top 5 in yards and lines of scrimmage while Gardner Minshew was your quarterback. I just don't. And then they traded Gardner Minshew away, which is fine. I don't mind that. They're going to Trevor Lawrence. This is the type of thing that rookie quarterbacks don't come back from. Trevor Lawrence is getting beat to holy hell behind that line. He's been more interceptions. I mean, don't get me wrong. I knew Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning had an actual coaching staff there. Urban Meyer is treating this like he did in Ohio State or Florida or wherever the hell else you want to talk about. Dude is used to. Here's a problem with Urban Meyer. When you're in college, people love you. People worship you as the head coach of the football team at Ohio State, okay? They worship you in Florida. They worship you wherever you are. And your assistant coaches aren't going for your job. Your assistant coaches aren't worried about going to jobs. They want to stay in that beautiful system that you've created because you get this God worship on you. You're in the NFL. Your staff is all looking for the next time up. You think if Khan came to Darrell Bevell tomorrow and said, you want to be a head coach? Darrell Bevell would be like, damn right. Absolutely. Urban Meyer is not ready for this. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's the Urban. I saw it on Twitter today. The Urban Meyer cycle.
Pains.
Yeah. I'm not feeling great. I'm probably going to have to go home. And then, a couple years later, it becomes an analyst. And a couple years later, a team like USC comes calling and goes, yo, Urban, we need a really good head coach. I know you're really good in college. Come get worshipped. And that's what's going to happen. It's sick of me.
It'll be a couple years. I think he goes to USC.
You think he goes to USC? Honestly,
this happens.
Perfect job for him.
Quick enough, they will absolutely do it.
Perfect job for him too.
Absolutely do it.
Absolutely funny? Perfect job.
There's a video that I had never seen until yesterday. I was digging through the comments on the Urban Meyer thread at like 2 a.m. because I was dying laughing. And I
Mm-hmm.
woke up my wife laughing. But there's a video of Urban Meyer doing a TV interview, and behind him is like a mirror. He's on like a boat or something doing the interview.
Right.
And there's a dude in front of him, at least shirtless, if not more, walking around. And Urban Meyer, you can watch I'll link you the interview later, but Urban Meyer is literally like mouthing to the guy, like, no, no, no. Like he's trying to say no while he's doing the interview with this like news station. The dude ends up taking a rip. You hear a lighter and then a rip from a bong. And
Uh-huh.
Urban Meyer is like screaming at him. I had never seen that video, but I'm like, yo, this dude is way more wild than we thought.
Crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. I just don't. I have no idea how the NFL keeps making the same mistake. Like it's just literally the same mistake over and over. I get that you have these hot NFL or hot NCAA coaches that you want to bring up and give chances to, but there's so many good NFL assistant coaches that should deserve chances, but we still go to, you know, hero worship Urban Meyer. It's insane. Talking about let's stick with the NFL here for a second. Today, two major like stalwarts on two defenses one was released, one was almost released today. Jalen Smith gets released from the Cowboys and scooped up by the Packers. Now, a lot of this is based on the fact that Jalen Smith's money is they got a large number to deal with, and with Micah Parsons there, kind of taking over the role Jalen Smith did. Even Micah Parsons says, "Don't ask me what position I play. I play defense now. I just play wherever he wants." They haven't pass rush him. They have him in the safety. He's essentially the roamer now for that defense. But Jalen Smith gets released and picked up by the Packers. The Packers are a much better team with Jalen Smith on it. I'm not going to lie to you. I know he's had his issues, but that's going to be a good team. I don't even want to comment about Jalen Smith specifically because right on the heels of this, reports out where Stephon Gilmore was getting released by the Patriots. Stephon Gilmore, a little more reasonable, I guess, because he's on the PUP list until week 6. He's a very bad hamstring issue. So at the time, we were like, okay, he's hurt. You know, maybe he's not going to play. And Gilmore is a little older, don't get me wrong. Still one of the smartest players in the NFL, one of the smartest defenders in the NFL. So instead, Carolina comes in and says, hey, here's a 6th-round pick. We'll take him. Carolina's in win-now mode. I think McCaffrey on what we thought was going to be a 4 to 6 week injury, he's back on the practice field today. And they're a very, very good squad. They already have a top 3 defense without him. J.C. Horn gets hurt. Gilmore going to come in and play the slot. Are we really to the point where major NFL pieces get released mid-season?
I think there are a couple of things here. There are two major factors I think for Gilmore, right? He's 31, so he's obviously I think he's in the final year of his deal, so he's going to be up for a contract, right? But 31 for a corner, you kind of see that like speed taper off, the agility, the hips aren't as sort of fluid as they once were.
Right.
I think that's sort of one thing that definitely played into it. And if you know anything about the Patriots, Belichick will cut anyone at any point, anytime. He does not care about any of that stuff. So I think that's issue one. I think the other big thing that's not being talked about enough is I think the real reason, probably the most popular reason why the Carolina Panthers did this move for Stephon Gilmore is they wanted to reunite Sam Darnold with one of his favorite targets, Stephon Gilmore.
Yes.
It makes sense.
God, that's so awful. It hasn't worked out as well for Robbie Anderson, but can you imagine in practice mode, Gilmore coming in going, boo? Just after the ghost comment, yeah. I don't.
Just as many times as you thrown the ball to him, it just feels like the right move for them.
You're not going to hate on the most improved player in the NFL this season, are you?
Okay, we're not doing this.
That's what he is. Listen to me. Don't make me go get an L-Star. Don't make me go get an L-Star on this podcast because, dude, you're not going to tell me the Panthers aren't for real, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. They kind of laid an egg against the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have an unbelievable offense. If you're going to talk about comeback player of the year, Dak has got to be in the conversation at this point.
Sure.
Even though we're now getting the two-headed monster of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard running most of that offense, but Carolina's been very, very good this year. And again, we're talking about a top 3 defense who loses J.C. Horn, their superstar rookie cornerback, who again plays the slot for them. And Gilmore can very easily come in once healthy. And there are reports that he's going to be ready for week 7 right now, which is what I was getting to is we thought Gilmore was hurt and might be hurt more. Maybe that's why the Patriots released him. No, the Patriots just wanted to get some money back.
Well, let's chill for a couple of reasons. One, hamstring injuries always difficult. We never know long term how players are going to be able to bounce back quickly off of that.
Right.
The other thing I want to point out, here's who the Panthers have played. Yes, they are 3-1 in the season, but they played the Jets and they won by 5, the Saints and they won by 19.
I mean, the Saints.
and
Hold
the
on,
Texans.
the Saints are okay. The Saints are okay.
Sure. The Saints, they won by 19. And then the Texans, who did not have Tyrod Taylor, had to do with a neck longer than mine at quarterback. So those are their 3 wins.
Sorry, it was after I cut my hair. So I mean, when you see Mills at quarterback, it wasn't my fault. I tried to hide a little bit.
Those are their 3 wins, right? You could say one of those teams is good. The Saints.
Yeah.
The Texans, without Tyrod Taylor, not a good team. The Jets, not a good team. Sorry, Jets fans. The Cowboys were their first real test. They lost by 8. So I'm still not fully sold on the Panthers being a legit team, but let's give them a couple of weeks and we'll see.
I still think they're a wild card team. Of course, I also picked Washington for the Super Bowl at this point, and we're watching Taylor Heineke become the next coming of Joe Theismann. So, yeah. So that okay. So my bigger thing here is, does the NFL, and this is a much larger topic for a much longer time, do you think the NFLPA needs to have a serious conversation at some point the next time they have a collective bargaining agreement for maybe more guarantee into the contract? I know that there's less games and more injury chance in the NFL than there is anywhere else, but you look at baseball, you look at the NBA, you look even at hockey, and you see Stephon Gilmore. Again, I know he got traded, but he was getting cut today. He was getting released today. Jalen Smith was cut today. The Cowboys didn't trade him because they couldn't find a trade partner. He was cut. Are we to the point where maybe they need to take a little bit more power back from the owners?
Good luck.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I think again, this is a larger topic for a larger day, like you said, but the NFL owners are largely, old white dudes, and they're not in the position to give, young multicultural players more power than what they have right now. So, like, I don't anticipate more guaranteed money going to NFL players anytime soon. I would anticipate a work stoppage before I'd anticipate that happening.
Yeah, maybe we get like the replacements, get Keanu Reeves at quarterback. Shane Falco for the Washington. I don't know what the whole name was. It the Guardians?
Capitals? Or Washington Generals?
No, the Generals are the people that were in the the Washington Generals are the players that play the Globetrotters all the time.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, maybe that'd be Washington's new name at this point.
Patriotic.
Yeah, right. Let's talk. You want to talk about guaranteed money? Let's talk about guaranteed money coming out of your paycheck. Ben Simmons is still holding out of 76ers preseason and training camp for missing the last page that they did, or the last game that he did. Ben Simmons reportedly is going to be fined $360,000. I want to point out that there was an Instagram post by a 76ers fan site that put together an image of all of the fines by date that Ben Simmons would start to get as the holdout happened. Somebody in almost an NBA 2K-esque story caught that Ben Simmons liked this Instagram post, showing pretty much that he doesn't care. He doesn't care. I mean, the dude's got more money than he knows what to do at this point, just as an NBA player in general. It's how in the world do they, number one, can they repair this relationship? And number two, his value goes down by the day with them.
This is a problem for one group and one group only. It's the Philadelphia 76ers. Yep. This is also a problem that they, just as equally as Ben Simmons, created, right? It's partially on Ben Simmons for refusing to develop a jump shot. Also, it's also on his parents for making him a righty when he's naturally a lefty. We've had that conversation before.
Yeah, we have.
But Philly could have traded him. You could not trade him directly after the postseason. Like immediately after, you could not trade him because there was a whole rehabilitation thing. But there was a window of like 3 to 4 weeks before this really came to a head that they could have traded him and they could have gotten maximum value. Mm-hmm. Toronto is an option. Indiana is just beating down their doors for him, which is insane. That's been like a big rumor. Apparently now that Indiana like desperately wants Ben Simmons there. Houston would probably be able to give insane capital for that. You can trade Ben Simmons, and he's going to want to go to a major market, right? It's just part of who he is and who his agent essentially is at this point. Ben Simmons is kind of like, he doesn't have to do anything. This kid is going to make massive money. He's already made massive money. He can sit out the entire season if he wanted to and still be okay, because long term, someone is going to pay him significant money or want to pay him significant money on their roster, because he's a 6'10 versatile player who has one glaring hole in his game, that is his jump shot.
Yep.
There are no other holes in Ben Simmons' game. Defense, rebounding, stealing, assists, all of those things Ben Simmons does as a top 10-ish player in the league. But when you talk about what his jump shot looks like, sheesh, we have a lot of problems there. But can that be fixed? Someone's going to take a gamble on that. It's just who.
Sorry, I had the sheesh.
I'm bombing.
Even on the runway in NBA 2K, I do the sheesh motion. I'm gonna bring up a what if. Marvel What If is very popular right now on Disney Plus. If you haven't watched it, it is alternate scenarios of alternate worlds. Let me bring you an alternate 76ers world. Ben Simmons was drafted in 2016, right? Who did the Sixers draft in 2017?
Was it Markelle Fultz?
It was the Fultz year, number 1 overall. Do you know who was drafted in that draft 2 spots after that?
What team was it?
By the Boston Celtics.
Tatum?
That was the Tatum draft. Yes, it was. Yeah, you understand where I'm going now. Let me just say, what if? What if the 76ers drafted Jason Tatum and that still have Simmons on this roster? This team has 2 NBA titles. Do you agree with that? From 2017 until now.
I don't think they have 2 NBA titles right now, but I think they could definitely win 2 NBA titles in the next 5 years. If you imagine a healthy Embiid, a Simmons running point guard and distributing and getting to the bucket, and a Jason Tatum who is one of the few players in the NBA who can make his own shot and shoot anywhere and anywhere he wants. Yeah, that's a team that definitely contends and probably wins a title or 2 in the next 5 years.
Unbelievable, right? They took 2 players back to back who both have jump shot issues that were caused by either wrong hands or just terrible mechanics. 76ers thought they could fix everybody, right? Oh man. So let's continue with this. We're talking about jump shots, so let me transition to this. I saw a video on Twitter of Steph Curry in a preseason game. Kind of get a nice little move, nice little step back to 3, but he faked and then jumped into a defender who was jumping at him. Now, normally 3 free throws, right? That's what we're used to, right? No, literally no call. And this is a change in NBA refereeing that's coming this year, where they're not going to allow players to jump into fouls like that anymore. I like the change. I do like the change, but there is. By the way, I retweeted this. It's by Talkin' NBA at _Talkin' with no G _NBA. It was put out on October 4th about 10:30. So he steps back, gets the defender from the Portland Trailblazers in the air, jumps into him, throws the ball at the rim, does not hit the shot, and does not get the foul. Do you agree with this change in officiating?
I absolutely agree with it, and I want to get it tattooed on my face. That's how much I love this rule change. I have hated this move in pickup basketball where dudes pump fake, throw their body into you, and shoot it and say, that's a foul. No, that's a dumb move. You're going to dislocate your shoulder, you dummy.
Yep.
I've hated this forever. I love Kobe Bean Bryant, but Kobe Bryant is one of the people that pioneered this move. Kobe was doing this move since the number change when he went to 24 for the Lakers, where he would pump and then jump into people.
Yep.
And he popularized it, and he was incredibly smart for doing it. The NBA has talked for a couple of years about changing this, and they are finally doing it, and it's going to make basketball so much better because of it.
I agree. This also brings up something else for me, though. So, like, if you're going to get rid of that, is it time to relook at the Euro step?
No, the Euro step's good.
You think? Euro step's
fine.
It's about as close to traveling as you're going to get without palming the basketball upside down, LeBron.
No, the Euro step's not, because the Euro step is just about altering. It's the 2-step movement, but you're altering instead of direct succession. You're going right and left or left or right. The move they should be talking about is the interpretation of sort of like the Euro or the 2.5 steps that they allow in the NBA,
right,
with what James Harden and other players have done. Harden is doing some wild stuff, and he's pushing the boundary, and I give him props for creativity. When you look at that, your first reaction every single time, if you love basketball, is that's a travel.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not. So that to me is the more egregious thing. Eurostep is fine. That is not so much.
It was funny because you mentioned James Harden, and James Harden's moves are so incredibly crazy that in NBA 2K21, I don't know if it's in 22 yet in his dribble style, but in 21, if you used his dribble style or used him in like my team, he was the only player that had a step back that had a fake shot involved in it. So you could actually get the meter to pop up and then continue moving without getting a traveling call on you. It was dirty. It really was because people would jump almost instantly so they see the shot meter. So kind of crazy. I agree with you with the Harden thing. Like we've seen some of those same foot step backs that end up looking like technically you're right. They're under the Euro kind of rule. They're under the two-step rule, but he's at the ball in his hand, so it does look absolutely like a travel.
Yeah. I think they're going to adjust that and go to it at some point. It's just it's only really James and maybe a handful of players that are doing it right now. Like I think we've seen Trey Young do it. I've seen Tatum do it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's becoming more. It's sort of a lot of that is being used in like a reverse Euro. So it's like a step back shuffle,
Right.
where they're like hopping back and then two quick shuffles to then pull. They're going to have to look at it. It's just going to be a little bit because I think they want to get some of this other stuff cleaned up. They'll go to that. It's just we'll see how many players start adapting to it.
Right. Well, you're right. Harden was the person that obviously I think invented it. Trey Young for sure has picked it up. 100%. I think did I see I think Lucas started to do it too.
Sure.
I think I saw
Yep.
him in the world starting to see him do it too. So, let's talk about Luca. Let's talk about Luca's draft class in 2018 with him, Trey Young, SGA was in that class, Michael Porter Jr. Another rookie who took a little bit more time than those players to really show up in the NBA stratosphere. But this last playoff run has left him in probably the best position he could possibly be in terms of extension. And now he's starting to talk about that as well. Is Deandre Jordan the number one overall pick from the 2018 draft? A pretty, really, I'm only pretty, really good run for him in the playoffs, where he kind of faded towards as they got eliminated, but he is eligible now for a 5-year, 172 million extension with I think there's like bonuses on it that could go upwards of 200 million. Um, we're talking about players. I mean, let's be fair. Davis Bertrand's got a max deal in this NBA. You've got to max him, right? He's a rookie. Like he's showing his ability. You've got to hit that extension on him, right? Because now you're starting to see that there's been a quote unquote stall in discussions on the deal. Quote unquote sources told Woj. I mean, you have to sign that kid, right?
This is 100% Robert Sarver's like do or die moment as an owner.
Yeah.
I think Sarver should have sold this team a long time ago. He is in a really good spot to sell them right now because you have Chris Paul under contract for I think 2 more seasons. And then you're going to have obviously Booker, who I think is under a couple of seasons as well. And then you have Aiden for whatever time you can essentially come to an agreement with. You've got a lot of young talent on that team as well. Sell
Mikal
the team,
Bridges,
Robert Sarver.
Mikal Bridges, who is also coming up for his extension. Yeah.
Yep. This is the problem with Robert Sarver. So Robert Sarver in 2000, I don't know, 10, 9, somewhere around there, had Joe Johnson. And if you don't know who Joe Johnson is, first of all, watch the Big Three or whatever that thing that he's playing in, because the dude is still old as I don't know what and giving people buckets right now.
Yeah.
Joe Johnson, ISO Joe, was up for an extension and he traded him rather than giving him an extension. He has not, I was reading an article earlier, he has not went over the has not paid the luxury tax as an NBA owner since the 2009-2010 season, a decade before the franchise got back to the playoffs. So this is the most successful the team has been. You have a big man who you obviously need to essentially pay at some point, but he's not going to do it. My assumptions are using the bargaining chip of like, Aiden didn't become this guy until CP3 came there. CP3 has been his mentor, his tutor, helping him out, giving him a lot of insight, helping him with the pick and roll game, helping him understand how his assignment should be on defense. And I'm sure that Sarver is using that against DeAndre Aiden in this. You have a 7-footer who can move, who can defend. And when you have someone who is like Monty Williams coaching him, you have to pay this kid.
Yep.
This kid can be incredibly good. His ceiling is through the roof. We don't have many 7-footers that can do what DeAndre Aiden does. He just has to be motivated like a lot of young players. Aiden is what, 23?
23,
Yeah,
yes. 23,
23.
yep.
Pay this man. To your point, Davis Bertans got his extension, got paid max. It's a no-brainer. You
Right.
don't get major talent like this to stay in Phoenix right now. Pay this kid.
Yeah. Talking about paying, I mean, like, you're talking about teams are, especially in the West, we just saw Denver. Denver maxed Michael Porter Jr. And I would say right now, I would take DeAndre Ayton over Michael Porter Jr. in a heartbeat. They maxed him to go along with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And like you said, Booker and Paul are already on max deals. Paul's gonna finish his max deal. I think Devin Booker is a son for life. I just feel like that he's taken that on as his team, unless, like you said, Sarver screws that up. Dude, Aiton's got to be a piece of this team. I said it was what was he 14, 10 and 1.2 blocks a game during the season. And again, this is going to be a very, with the rookie extension date is October 18th, so it has to happen before they start the season. But this is also going to be a very telling season as well, because this is the first full official NBA season we've had back since the pandemic started. So it's going to be very interesting to see how players adapt to this, including DeAndre Ayton, with, not 72 games crushed up minus 2 months. So it's going to be kind of cool to see how that goes.
I just look, Robert Sarver. Phoenix is not a major market team. They've had major success over decades. Pay that young man and let your team still be great. You have a great coach. You have a veteran point guard. You have one of the best guards in the game in Book. Pay your center. Let that man eat.
Yep, agreed. Kind of a great time, right? NBA preseason, NHL preseason. We're starting to talk about Evander Kane again because we have nothing else to talk about with him faking a vaccine card. Why? Anyway, we have the NFL is in full swing. The other one we have is Major League Baseball is in their playoffs now. The Yankees losing to the Red Sox. Nathan Eovaldi decided he wants to outduel a Cy Young. And then tonight, as we're talking right now, the Cardinals are up 1-0 on the Dodgers. I still think the Dodgers win this game, but we'll see how that goes. Cardinals been incredibly hot. But I want to talk about the ending of the season for MLB. MLB introduced a bunch of new rules in the last few years. The runner on second which in extra innings, which were losing after this year. Actually, it's not even in the playoffs. Thank God. As a baseball quote unquote purist, I hate that. But one of the things they added was the wild card game, and this has been here for a few years. The wild card one game play-in, and what this allowed this season to do was we had a race in the AL down to the last day, where we had the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mariners, and the Blue Jays all playing last weekend meaningful baseball. And it was cool because it wasn't just meaningful baseball for those 4 teams. Like, I'm an Orioles fan, okay? The Orioles got a chance to play major spoilers to these teams, and we're even like on social having fun with this. Do you think MLB as a whole done a good job trying to get creative with rules, not only with like the wild card, but they're trying new things in order to make the game more appealing to a wider fan base? And we've talked about this before, baseball's fan base being the oldest one in the major 4 sports in America. And do you think MLB's trying here? And again, sometimes they do something dumb with the runner on second on second base in extra innings, but it's an opportunity to try, right? They're trying to do something to keep eyes on the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've been hypercritical of baseball for probably a decade plus at this point about how they screw things up, and their marketing for players is still the worst, I think, of all the major sports. Maybe hockey is probably better, I would say, than what Major League Baseball is for like marketing their actual superstars.
Agreed.
But the rules they've made have largely been good. Yes, the runner on second and extra innings wasn't a huge fan of, but think back even a couple of years previous to this is where they made the change about pitchers having to face 3 batters, for example, right?
That was this year too. You're right. That was this year.
That was this year. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
They're keeping that, by the way. They're keeping that.
I love that one. They've made a lot of really good adjustments, I think, over the years that have just helped the experience of baseball, help the competitive balance. They've sped it up a little bit, which I think we all can agree they needed to do to some degree. And so baseball is getting there. There's still like a home run late in the game is still one of the most exciting things I think in sports ever. So I like that they're sort of they're getting all this down to a compact spot, and then you get at the end of the season where the playoffs are there, and like I watched some of the highlights from what the Yankees and Red Sox had last night, and seeing the Yankees lose is always great for me. But watching just some of those shots, like Xander Bogaerts shot in that game, like
Yep.
when you think about baseball, a lot of times it's Yankees Red Sox, right? It's like a top rivalry you think of, and knowing that there was a wild card game that's a do or die. You win it, you advance. You lose it, you go home, and your season's completely done. That to me was so cool, and I generally love what they've done. Some things maybe not, but it ended up in great drama this year.
I'm going to go over a couple of quick changes I think would help baseball become more popular. I want you to give me like a yes or no, okay? DH in the National League.
Absolutely.
Becoming more, how do I want to say this? Not accepting. Finding some way to intertwine sports betting more into baseball.
I think it'll get more eyes on that sport for sure.
I mean, that's essentially what the
Yeah.
NFL, and that brings to the next thing is that finding a better way to promote and grasp fantasy sports in baseball. Because
Yeah,
right now, well, let me explain that just a little bit. Right now, one of the draws of fantasy football is you set your team for Sundays, it's ready to go. It's Mondays, Thursdays, you know what I mean. But you set your team, it's a 1 week thing. Baseball can be very daunting. Same thing with fantasy basketball. I love fantasy
yeah.
dude. I love fantasy hockey, but I mean, 82 games is a lot, and having that consistently have to worry about that throughout the week is a lot of stuff. Is a lot to worry about. 162 games is just insane. And I know you can do it weekly, but they have to start worrying about if starting pitchers pitch twice. There's got to be a better way for baseball to really kind of grasp fantasy sports. And maybe it's daily, maybe it's, getting more creative that way. But I think that's what really brought the NFL to the forefront. Do you think do you think that would be a big thing for baseball?
Yeah, daily fantasy I think would help baseball a ton from that side. I think the other thing is like I think more sports, baseball included, should be integrating fantasy sports in general. It doesn't always have to be the betting side of it, but the fantasy scoring, the fantasy metrics, the live fantasy point updates into the actual broadcast. Like imagine a player hits a home run and one of the lower thirds just happens to mention like how many points that essentially has
Right.
in fantasy baseball leagues from standard scoring and how many people actually started him today versus sat him today. Imagine if in the NFL we saw some rookie receiver who's only being started in 2% of leagues scoring an 80-yard touchdown, and like Jamar Chase for example. Jamar
Right.
Chase getting all these touchdowns in the early weeks, and then seeing how many people actually started Jamar Chase and how these points are. Like those are little small nuggets that I think broadcasts need to be sort of taking in, especially these official broadcasts. Doesn't have to be the local. I'm talking about more of national ones.
Right.
And I think baseball in general would get people to be like, "Oh shoot, fantasy baseball! I should play that." Like it would just be a major W for them.
Agreed. Agreed. I think this is, and then this is going to be a conversation for another podcast, I think, but you think with sports betting becoming more of a nationwide thing now, every state seems to be opening up, and we've talked about me. I enjoy sports betting a lot, but I also remember in Europe sports betting being a huge thing and then getting shut down because of some of the problems it caused. Do you think sports betting as a whole is something that is do you think it general answer, like I said, we'll get into this in another podcast. Do you think it's better for sports to have a healthy sports gambling world around it, or do you think it's more of a hindrance in general?
For me, I'm okay with sports having more of that like balance and incorporating sports betting. I don't bet myself because I'm
Right.
too frugal. But I would much rather there
Scared
be
is scared
the
is the word I think you're looking for.
probably. But I don't want to. I don't want to see a society where like if sports betting isn't accepted, right? If it isn't mainstream and there aren't popular avenues for it,
Right.
what happens is that people go down dark paths and they start going with bookies and things, and legs are broken and mortgages and are bad and all these crazy things happen. And so if there are much more easy and acceptable ways to do it, I think we're more often going to have people not go as far down some of those paths. There still need to be restrictions put in place to help people because it can be a compulsive thing and they can
Yes,
spend too much money. But
for sure.
as long as they're doing it in a way where they're setting guardrails and going about it the right way, I'm okay with it being like a more integrated public thing.
Regulated. is
Yeah.
the word I would use. Yeah, more regulation. And again, kind of Maryland. The reason I bring the up because it's kind of like it's starting that little fire in my head because Maryland is very very close. They've already approved sports betting. They just haven't. They're the next step of getting like all the apps online, like for that kind of stuff. And I'm excited for it, but at the same time, I know where that can lead at times, and I think you're right. Regulation, being able to like say, "Hey, look, you've gone too far." Like, don't bet the house on the Cowboys. I promise you won't go well. So I think that's a conversation I want to have in another podcast. Maybe as that becomes more and more popular. But for tonight, I think it's been pretty good. If you are listening to us right now, it is Thursday. Thank you for listening. Remember to catch us. I'm at twitch.tv/Mills. You are at
fb.gg/GoodGameBro.
Go check him out. And next week, I know Madden talked about the scouting update happening in mid-October. There has been rumors that, next week might be the week. If it is, expect a full review on this channel because I am words that I can't say on the podcast over that scouting update for I've got this awesome franchise where I'm Kyle Shanahan and I got fired from the Niners because I promised a Super Bowl. I went 13-4 and got fired because I lost in the first round. And now I took over Washington. Dude, I had my first 4 draft picks in Washington were all hidden development over 75 overalls. And I'm gonna have to give it up. It sucks, but like I'm so excited for the scouting update. I know you are too, because I know you're ready to get your feet wet in the old franchise mode. So,
Yup, cannot wait. But again, we'll catch you guys on the next Thursday's episode of the Overplayed podcast. Leave us a 5-star review if you have not already. Hopefully you have. Maybe we'll shout some out in the future. We've been done that a long time. But we'll catch you guys next week. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys in the next one.
Ciao.